quick walkthrough through the end of assessment module 1 review in case you need to watch the whole thing. So number 1, complete the table below. So here we have a table and it has missing values. What do we do? Well, what we first need to do is find a pair. So there's only one pair here, the 3 and the 51. And so what we want to do is, first we need to, what we could do is, you could think of like, well, how do you get from 3 to 1? It's really what we're trying to do here is find the unit rate. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, so we could do 51 divided by 3, and that is 17. I'm going to use a different color. 17. So the nice thing about this is this right here is a unit rate because it is 1 to 17. So you can use this unit rate now to solve everything else. So let me get rid of this. Okay, so how do you get from 17 to 34? Well, that's times 2. So 1 times 2 would be 2. How do you get from 1 to 5? Well, 1 times 5 is 5. So 17 times 5 is 85. Okay. And then you can do from here, I don't know what 153 is. Oh, it's probably this times 3. I could either do, how do I get from 117 how do I go from 17 to 153? Well, I could do 153. I'm just using a calculator, as you can see right here. Divided by 17. That's 9. So this would be 9. And then I could just do, I'm going to do 85 times 3 to get 255. 255 here. Using different patterns because I know 5 times 3 is 15. So I'm going to do 85 times 3. So the important thing is just always using one pair to find the rest. I'm going to, quickly look at it and make sure that it makes sense. These all make sense. So, okay. What is 20% of 60? Show and explain all of your work. Okay, so I always start off with a proportion. Okay, what is 20% of 60? Well, we have our percent, 20%, so that goes over 100. And then we have our of 60. Remember, anything after of is the whole, so that means 60 is the whole, so that 60 would go on the bottom. Okay. And then you got to think of how to solve this. So one way is to just look for an easy pattern, and I'm noticing that an easy pattern is 20 is 100 divided by 5. So I could just do 60, right, divided by 5 in my head. 60 divided by 5 is 12. Okay, so I'll do this for these, but so you could say 12 is 20% of 60. And that makes sense because 20% goes into 100 5 times, right? 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, and then 12 times 5 is also gets you to 60, so that makes sense. I'm not going to write a sentence for each of these just because I'm just going through the work to have you double check it, but you want to make sure that in the assessment, of course, you actually write out your answer as a complete sentence. Okay, so this one is, we've got 15 is what percent, 15 of what number is 30? So set up a proportion. right? 15%, I have my percent, so that would go up here. And it says, of what number? So there's nothing, it's not of some number. So this is actually what we're missing is right here. And then is 30. So and another trick is it says 50% of something is 30. 15% is 30. All right, so this one's pretty easy to solve mentally as well because, you know, times 2. So this would be times 2. This would be 200. So why not? I'll just write them out. 15% of 200 is 30. 24 is what percent of 80? So here we go again, setting up a proportion. And 24 is what percent? What percent? We don't have a percent in this one, so that's what's missing. This is what's missing, so I'll put next there. Of 80, that tells us that that's the whole, so 80 goes here. And 24 is the only thing that's left. This one I will solve using the cross products, which if you remember, that means that this 24, so the other way you can solve proportions is that 24 times 100 should equal 80 times x. So if you think about that, right, we would do, so we're saying 24 times 100. The diagonal ones equals the diagonal one. So 24 times 100 should equal 80 times x. 24 times 100 is 2,400. And so that should equal 80 times x. How do you figure out what this is? Well, 80 times something is 2,400. So if you do 2,400 divided by 80, you get 30. So that means that 2,400 equals 80 times 30, right? So 30 would be this number. So this is 30. So 30%. So 24 is 30% of 80. Moving on. James is headed on a trip and needs to buy an airline ticket. The original price of the ticket is $150, but they are marked with a frequent flyer discount of 12%. What is the dollar amount of the discount? What is the sale price of the ticket? Show and explain all at work. Okay, so first of all, the original price is $150. They're marked down 12%. First of all, we need to find out what this discount is, 12%. And that would be the dollar amount of the discount. We know the discount is 12%, but how much is the actual, what is that in dollars, right? So I can do that here. So we have setting up my proportion, right, 12%. We know this is 12%. 12 over 100 is 12%. The original price is 150. The original would be the whole. So this would be 150. Okay. 100 times 1.5 times 1.5. 1.5. Half of 12 is 6. So this would be 18. Okay, because this is times 1.5. I did that in my head, but you could do 150 divided by 100 and get 1.5. So the dollar amount of the discount is 18, right? This whole fraction is the dollar amounts. This is the 12%. This is 100% of the ticket. So the dollar amount of the discount is $18. And the sale price of the ticket, well, the sale price of the ticket is the new price that was paid after the discount. So to figure that out, you would think, well, the ticket was $150, and then you subtract $18 from that cost, so it is $132. $132. And less. Oh no, wait. Oh boy. Forgot how many of these there are. A bungee jumper falls. Okay, so these are all percents, first of all, before I continue on. 1 through 5, these are all percent problems. Actually, this one is a kind of a unit rate type of problem. The rest of these are more unit rates. So a bungee jumper falls 120 meters in 3 seconds. How many meters does the bungee jumper fall per second? So we want meters per second. Something I always say is, if you want, this is asking for meters per second. Whenever you see the word per, you can just think division. So think meters. That's meters divided by the seconds. So we have 120 meters divided by 3 seconds. This would equal, right? You can also think of this as proportions, equivalent fractions. So you could think of it making another one where it's 1, and this would be 40, right? But also 120 divided by 3, that just equals 40. So we would have the bungee jumper falls 40 meters per second. It took Jamie 5 hours to walk 25 kilometers. How many hours would it take Jamie to walk 35 kilometers? So this right here is a little bit different than this one up here, because see, this one says per second, so this is asking us for just the unit rate, but this is asking us to figure out how long it would take to walk 35 kilometers if we know 25. So there's actually a couple different ways you could do this. You could set up a proportion first. You could say 5 over 25, or an equivalent fraction, equals, right, this is the, or if you think of back to just ratios, right, this is 5 hours to 25 kilometers, and we want some number of hours to 35. But what might be easier is just to take the 5 hours to 25 kilometers and simplify this. This would be 1 over 5, right? So this is 1 hour, and this would be 5 kilometers. And this is a lot easier to deal with because we want to know how long it takes to go 35 kilometers. And we know it takes 1 hour to go 5. So that means if you're going to go 35, right, that's just 5 times 7. So it would be 7 hours for 35 kilometers. It would take Jamie 7 hours to walk 35 kilometers. And last, Stephen can write 5 pages every 2.5 hours. How many hours would it take to write 100 pages? Show and explain all work. Okay, so again, just like this one, we have pages and hours. You could figure out the unit rate, but one thing is I know 5 pages, and I'm comparing 5 to 100, and 5 actually goes into 100. So I will just make a ratio as a fraction here, 2.5 to 5, right? This is hours over pages, and I have 100 pages, so I want 100 pages. And hey, this looks just like the percent ones, right? 5 times 20, 2.5 times 20 is 50. Or you could also notice in this fraction here that 2.5 is half of 5. So this would just be half of 100. Let's see. Stephen can write 100 pages in 50